Good afternoon. This is a continuation of the Veterans in Politics International Endorsement interviews, Sunday, April 6, 2014. We're now conducting interviews for State Senate District Number 10. And seated at the table is Mr. Ed Uehling. Mr. Uehling, I will read the guidelines for the interviews today. A strict schedule will be adhered to without exception. This is an interview, not a debate. No redirect questions. Candidates are allowed 1.5-minute introduction. Panelists are given 30 seconds to pose a question. Candidates have 1 minute to respond. If time allows, audience members will be invited to pose a question and/or the panel may ask more questions. This is not a forum to air personal grievances. Complex questions that require too lengthy an answer will be disqualified. Panelists will pose their questions to one candidate or all candidates only if a yes/no answer can be given. Why don't we begin, sir? And you can take a minute and a half to tell us about yourself and why you're running.
Yes, my name is Ed Uehling. I'm probably the oldest candidate you interviewed. I moved here with my family in 1943 when Las Vegas was a little town of 8,000 people. We moved to Boulder City. And when I can remember, I was 3 years old at the time. I was born in 1940. And so I can remember this land over here in Paradise Valley was called, being sold for $1 an acre. And certainly things have changed. Certainly things have changed since that time. I did all my schooling, primary and secondary schooling in Boulder City. And then went to college at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland. Transferred, became interested in the Mormon Church, transferred to BYU and graduated from BYU, and then served a mission for the Mormon Church in the country of Chile in South America, and that was my first experience abroad. Then returned to do my graduate work on a scholarship to return to South America and study in South America, and did my master's degree at BYU. Then went to work for the Organization of American States, which is like a United Nations, but just for the Western Hemisphere. To make a long story short, I moved around the United States. I returned to buy some property here in southern Nevada and develop the gay community here in about 1988. And since then have gotten involved in a lot of government activities, seeing the discrimination that exists toward certain groups of people and certain people, and the number of sacred cows that are roaming around this county. And so I've been dealing with government issues since then. I talked too long, I'm sorry.
That's okay, your opponents aren't here, so we got a little extra time. Thank you. All right, well, let's begin with questions from our panel. And who wants to start? Why don't we, Mr. Charles, we haven't started with you. Why don't we start with you this time? Or you could pass and we'll come
I have
back
to listen to somebody talk so I can think of something intelligent to ask.
Okay, well, let's go down the road then. Mike?
The state of Nevada has underfunded the state income pension program to close to about $7 billion. How would you go about correcting that situation?
Well, I think that's a very, very important question. It isn't just $7 billion, and some people estimate it to be $40 billion. It's just outrageous how the public employees have been allowed to create their own separate entity. They're like the sacred cows that I'm talking about. They earn 3 times as much in their lifetimes as the ordinary citizen, and yet it's the ordinary citizens that are somehow supposed to stand for all this and finance it. A public employee will earn $2, $3, $4 million, some more than that, in their lifetime. A private sector employee will be lucky to earn $1 million. It's the number one not the number one problem, but certainly a serious problem. 85% of all government expenditures go to those
15 seconds.
employees.
I was just giving you a 15-second one.
Okay, and so each one of those puts at least 3 people out of work. We need to deal with the public sector. There's plenty of money in the public sector. It's poor, very poorly allocated.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Holt.
In the state of Nevada, we've been given, a lot of people are moving in here and getting on the social lists and stuff, such as welfare, food stamps, things like that. How would you change it so that we're not winding up, paying out more than we're actually coming in?
Well, I agree. There's a huge issue with cost of social programs. We basically have a welfare government. And basically, in my opinion, the Democrats, and I was a Democrat until just a few weeks ago, are basically conducting a huge vote buying machine by getting all these people on welfare. But it isn't just the people that we see every day on welfare. It's the corporations. It's the handouts to all sorts of special interests. We have a government of special interests. We don't have a government of the people anymore.
Thank you. Mr. Klesmer. You can pass, we'll come back to you.
All right.
All right.
Hi. My question was, you stated that you recently were a Democrat and now you are a Republican. And I wondered if you could tell us
No,
about...
I'm not a
Did you say that?
Republican.
You're
A
still
libertarian.
A libertarian. Okay,
Yes.
that's why that was a little bit more in line with what my research I'd done on you. My question would be, what is your experience in politics? Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What you've done in the past, if you've ran for office, and the outcomes of those things.
Well, I ran. My experience in politics is sort of funny. I ran for sheriff in 1994, and served alcohol at my functions. And the business license department and the sheriff department pursued me for 3 years through Justice Court, District Court, and finally the Supreme Court of the state of Nevada for having served alcohol. It was a criminal charge for serving alcohol without a license. Every other politician is able to do it, but Ed Uehling wasn't able to. Then in 3 years ago, I think it was, 2011, I ran for mayor. On one basic issue, I wanted to provoke the mayor, whoever was in mayor, to go camp out on the White House lawn until they give visas, tourist visas, to the Chinese people who are dying to come to Las Vegas, who have tons of money. They live in a society that's actually creating wealth instead of destroying it, and bring them here, and instead of taking them to Macau. I have a home in Macau, and I've seen the development of Macau during the last 10 years, and they're eating our lunch.
Thank you. Thank you. Why don't we come
I
back?
did one thing. I got 22 votes. That's my experience, to answer your question.
Mr. Custer, are you ready?
Yeah. How would you propose to, obviously, in every city, in every state, in every country, there's a lot of misappropriated funds. In other words, a lot of grafting. How would you propose to solve that issue? How would you propose to solve that issue?
Well, I don't see it so much as misappropriated funds. The whole system is legally corrupt. Here, we look at other countries and we say, oh, look at those people, they're so corrupt. The corruption here and the corruption there. The corruption in the United States is much greater. It's legalized. It's legal for the government unions to provide funds to candidates and put out, create votes, and really win the elections for candidates, and then go into secret negotiations behind back doors to divvy out 85%, to take over 85% of everything the state has, everything the county has. It's legalized theft.
So what would you propose to help to alleviate that?
An outlaw public government unions. They have no role in a constitutional, in a free society. We don't elect those union leaders. We elect the politicians, but the politicians don't have control of their own government. It's the people, the union leaders in the back door that have the control. That's for one. Eliminate all pensions for elected officials, because that's what's promoting this careerism in politics. We don't want career. There's no place for career politicians. There's only a place for people for the politician leadership by the people, not by some, as I call them, sacred cow.
Thank you. Why don't we come over to this table now? And Lily, would you like to go first?
So you said that a lot of corporations get handouts. My question is this: what is the distinction between a small business and a corporation? Because you did mention corporations, and specifically, I should say. So
Well,
what's the distinction?
Obviously, most corporations are small business. I didn't mean to distinguish between a corporation and small business. I meant to distinguish between corporations that are able to hire accountants and hide all their money overseas and in other places, who can get out of paying any taxes. General Motors hasn't paid taxes, what, for 20 years, something like that?
So you are making a distinction between a small business and a corporation, then? You are making a
A
distinction?
small business, I think, is categorized as 150 employees, I'm not sure. And I certainly support that. The system we have now is crony capitalism, where the state decides who is going to become rich, basically.
I think a small business is characterized as any business that makes under $5 million a year
Oh,
by the SBA.
Thank you. Please, anyone else that disagrees or has ideas, please give them to me, because I certainly don't know all these facts.
Mr. Epperson?
Sorry, one second.
No problem, sir.
I'm trying to go back to, I don't recall the exact questions. I think it was Mike and Jeff. You both asked them a question. I don't feel like it was answered. Do you remember what your question was?
Yeah, I was about welfare and.
The 40, was it the 40?
Food stamps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you,
We've got, basically we've got a lot of people coming,
sorry.
excuse me, we've got a lot of people coming in from other states, okay, California mainly,
Right.
but other states, and they're coming here and they're signing up for, welfare programs, they're signing up for food stamps, and that's on us.
Right.
That's on us,
I agree.
we don't pay state tax, but our state taxes are being used up by people that are not from
Right.
the state of Nevada.
So we understand that is bad, which is kind of what you went over and over and over. But is there anything, do you or do you not, I guess, have a plan to solve that problem?
To do away with these programs?
And if you do, what is it?
The solution here is reduce the amount of money that the public sector takes out of the private sector. The wages of the public sector have gone up at least 13% since 2008. The wages of the private sector have gone down 10%, and yet the private sector is constantly bragged on. Well, why don't you give more money to the public sector? All the politicians and the bureaucrats care about is that they get more money, and they never will have enough money, ever. And they want more and more and more. And as I said, the problem is they're paying way too much in public wages. There's an editorial in the Review Journal today. Nevada is the highest in the nation. The head of the DEA makes, Washington makes $150,000, $160,000 a year. An average policeman makes $160 a year in Las Vegas. Detectives make $200,000.
What is your plan to make those changes? Do you have a team?
To get rid of the government unions, outlaw government unions. They have no role in a free society. And eliminate pensions for public officials. Eliminate any naming of bridges or roads or anything else for any bureaucrat or any
That was one of my
public
other, that
official.
was one of my other questions you answered.
And so take away the privileges that these people have. So that, and for example, the fines. The fines go to the police, to the county, to the court system. Well, they're all lined against us, so well, all those fines should go in a fund and be distributed to another party, maybe to nonprofit organizations, not to the people that are assessing the fines. They're just conflicts of interest all over the place.
If they were to put all those fines and everything into a pool, where would you distribute that money?
I would have a drawing for nonprofit organizations.
Nonprofit.
Great information, thank you. Let's move on to Ms. Kate.
Mr. Uehling, thank you very much for being here today. So what would you consider?
Thank you.
You bet.
I'm having fun.
I am too. What would you consider the biggest issue in District 10 right now, and what is your specific plan to execute, a solution for it?
Well, the District 10 is attached to everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And from my point of view, the number one issue is the judicial system. If we restored the citizen grand jury, in which the citizens have a right to come, you take away the key to the grand jury room away from the district attorney, and any citizen has a right to go express his grievance in front of a grand jury, and the grand jury dictates who is going to be prosecuted. As it is now, people are targeted. There's no justice, really, only for the people that have enough money to pay for it. I personally was dragged through 3 years. Fortunately, my attorney paid the $50,000 that it cost. Even though we won at every level, they would keep suing the judges to continue the case. And the plea bargain system, the lack of jury trials. The second thing is, the second thing I would suggest, or definitely advocate, is jury nullification, so that the citizens have the final vote over all these laws that are being created. As I say, the laws in the United States, we have legalized corruption. Legalized.
Thank you, sir. As you notice, we are a little bit more lax on the time when you don't have your opponents here.
Yeah, I wish they were here. It'd be so fun.
Good hearing your ideas.
More fun.
Let's move on to Mr. Charles.
How long have you been a resident of Nevada?
Well, we moved here in 1943, so that would make 70 years, but I've lived in other places.
Well, I have to commend you. You survived the mob. You're a very outspoken person.
No kidding. I was going to say, it's true.
The mob isn't as bad as the government. I go to almost every county commission meeting. I speak at the county commission meeting. I'm very outspoken about the water district, which is just committing the most. They have the belief that they are entitled to anything they want, and if that requires raising the rates, which they did $100 million in 2012, another $100 million in 2013, they just expect us to just dish it out, and the rubber stamp boards that run these offices allow that. It's just incredible. And I go to those meetings and I testify against those things. Right now they've hired a lobbyist or a consultant, and paying him $250,000 to lead the citizen group, the so-called citizens group, in a certain direction, which will require enormous bonding. And then the other half of his company, Kathy Ohm, will get a commission on the bonding that they do. The more bonding, the more commission this firm will get. It's just unbelievable. And I go tell them that, and they say, well, Mr. Hobbs, well, what do you think about you? You're being accused of conflict of, oh, I don't lead that committee. And he's being paid $250,000 to lead that committee to want to construct this $15 billion pipeline to the north. which is going to be their next decision. It's all preordained, and he's just there to guide it. It's just, that's how the whole government runs. I mean, sorry.
No problem. Any more questions? Yes, sir. Go ahead. Why don't you go, Mike and Jeff?
Oh, thank you for the water.
My impression of you, you're currently anti-government of this current form. What form of government, or what role government should government have in its citizens' lives?
The constitutional government. The people should be in charge of the government. That's the whole purpose. That's what makes the United States different from any other government in the history of the world. And we need to reestablish that. The citizens' grand jury is one way. The nullification by the pettit juries, by the ordinary jury, allowing them. We wouldn't have continued this drug war for 60 years had there been a nullification of the jury. This is how the Underground Railroad was created or fomented during the Civil War, by the juries refusing to convict slaves that had reached the North. This is how we have freedom of the press. When the jurors went to jail rather than convict Peter Zenger in New York, because he criticized the governor of New York. We have this fabulous document, and we have this fabulous ideas, I mean unbelievable ideas, and we're letting these politicians just tear them to shreds.
Thank you. Where does that leave us, team? Any follow-up questions?
You said that, up until a few weeks ago, you were a Democrat, and now you're a Libertarian.
Yeah.
Okay. What was it that made you change and turn your back? I mean, obviously, I'm watching the news every night, okay, and I'm sitting there watching Nancy Pelosi, and all I'm sitting there saying, stay strong, don't worry about Obamacare, we got to stick together, we can win this, we can do this. What made you decide that you no longer want to be a part of their group?
Well, I was previously a Libertarian, and I joined the Democratic Party in 2008 during the time of Obama. I thought he would be a person who would listen and would listen to all sides and be a mediator and a person to bring things together. That hasn't worked out. He's torturing people in foreign countries. He's declared that the security apparatus has the right to kill or torture any American. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And so I've always been disappointed, and it was basically a political decision to change. I still speak my piece at the Stonewall Democratic Club and these other democratic organizations, but I'm really a libertarian. I believe in, to make it very clear, I believe in personal freedom and social. I'm a social liberal and a very strict fiscal conservative. I mean, the budgets of these agencies should be reduced, not increased.
Well, with that being said, and you used as an example, what was the federal office attorney, the $160,000 a year, then you compare him to a police officer. Do you not believe the police officers and firefighters who risk their lives working should not receive wages that would equal that amount if they're putting the hours in?
No, they work what? They work 40,000 hours, 50,000 hours in their lifetimes. A private individual has to work, especially a business owner or anyone who starts, he has to work 2, 3, 4 times that, and isn't guaranteed $30, $50, $60 an hour for his time. No, I don't think that the wages of policemen should be way up here and the ordinary citizen way down here. It separates the police. That's one of the problems we have. It separates the police from the population. The police are part of the population. I was raised in Boulder City. The policeman there, the policeman we had there in the 40s and 50s was just one of us, and it was a comfortable place to live. Now you feel like you're in a militarized zone. I testified at the county commission. I'm more afraid of the police than I am, and I've lost a lot more money because of the police than because of all the gangs, so-called gangs here in Las Vegas.
Thank you.
The uniform gang is more dangerous.
We have time for one last question, and Mr. Charles is raising his hand.
Sir, myself, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be a cop for all the money in the world. When you walk out that door, you're a dead man every day. If you come home safe, you gotta bless yourself. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. But I think that, can I respond?
Yeah, you can respond. Go ahead.
Yeah. More citizens have been killed by policemen here in this town, and it has one of the highest rates in the country, than citizens have killed police. I mean, the statistics are way lopsided.
People who get killed by police do one thing wrong. They confront them. And in our society right now, if I was a cop, if you confronted me, I would shoot you first and then ask the questions later. Because most of the cops that are killed don't ask the questions, and their families are suffering because they don't have a father or a husband anymore.
And how many cops have been killed in the last 3 years, let's say, here in Las Vegas? I think one.
I don't have that.
That was an incident in the man's garage.
I don't have the statistic on that, but I'm looking at the statistics of the United States of America that the police in this country are some of the bravest people that walk the streets.
I have a different opinion.
Well, with that,
Yeah, the other day, a policeman grabbed me because I asked for his name. I am entitled to ask for his name. And he grabbed me.
Maybe he didn't think so.
What?
thank you,
I'm sorry,
Mr.
what?
Charles, for your insightful questions. And I think we should leave it at that. Mr. Uehling, thank you very much for your time. This concludes